Are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Applications Unlimited with an Intuitive Way to Deploy PeopleSoft on Bare Metal Cloud Service. My name is Melanie Brady, and on behalf of IOUG headquarters, I would like to thank you for joining us. Today's broadcast is brought to you thanks to the IOUG Cloud Computing SIG. I encourage you to join the IOUG Cloud Computing SIG online today. This is the opportune way to connect with others in the field over this shared interest. In this community, we post relevant blog articles. You may email us to be added to the distribution list or join the community and benefit from our archive section at www.ioug.org/SIGs. Our speakers today are Pat Bangalore, Enterprise Architect Director and Cloud Evangelist of Oracle Corporation, and Nitin Vengurlekar, Oracle ACE Director from Viscosity North America. Before we begin, I would like to remind the audience to please feel free to submit questions throughout the event via the question chat box on your webinar toolbar. Our speakers will leave some time at the very end of the presentation to address these. And at this time, I would like to welcome today's presenters. Please go ahead, Nitin and Pat.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Today's session is going to be on IOUG, PeopleSoft on Oracle Bare Metal Cloud Services. So in this session, we're really going to go over a little bit of an introduction about what Oracle Bare Metal Cloud Services is, and kind of an overview of our real-world example of how we've migrated PeopleSoft implementation that was on-premise as we moved it and migrated it to a bare metal cloud implementation. And I'll also mention the white paper we published as well. So here we're talking just a little bit about background. You can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn and all those things. A little bit about me. Why am I even speaking? My name is Nitin Vengurlekar, like Melanie said. I am the Chief Evangelist, Chief Architect, CTO at Viscosity. Prior to that, I was with Oracle for 18 years. Part of it was in product management with RAC and ASM, as well as an evangelist for private database cloud. I've written numerous papers on the topic, not only on private cloud, but also on MAA and high availability, as well as consolidation, and written a couple of books as well, too. Pat?
Thank you, Nitin. Melanie. I am Pat Bangalore. I'm an Oracle cloud architect with Oracle for about 18 years, 7 years focused on PeopleSoft, about 5 years on PeopleSoft on RAC solution architecture. And I've also been an applications on cloud product manager within the RAC database team for about 3 years. And I've most recently, I've been a pre-sales solution cloud architect within the Oracle North America sales consulting organization. I've worked with numerous customers implementing, deploying, upgrading PeopleSoft architecture and People Tools technologies across various pillars. I'm a frequent speaker at Open World, Collaborate, and PeopleSoft user group conferences. I've also written a couple of papers on best practices for applications consolidation and connections into private cloud. You can reach me at pat.bangalore@oracle.com, and my phone number is mentioned there. Nitin, back to you.
Thanks, Pat. A little bit about Viscosity, who we are and what we do. I won't go into too much details, but we're primarily an Oracle services company. We focus on zero downtime migrations, either if it's on-premise between different platforms, AIX to Linux or whatever it might be, as well as we're doing quite a bit of work, and I'll share some of that experiences with you, and downtime migrations to the cloud. We do a lot of performance health checks, managed services, staff aug, and quite a bit of custom development, whether it's Angular, JS, HTML5, enterprise web applications. And one of the things we're focusing a lot on is Oracle license management, whether it's on-premise or as you're migrating to the cloud, since that's the theme of the discussion today. And finally, we've written the books. We've written quite a few books over the last 5, 6 years, 10 years. Over, I think our count is up to 12 books right now. Everything from ASM, Linux, Exadata to Hadoop, and even virtualization. And the focus on this session today is really around the paper that Pat and I co-wrote on our experiences, the exposure, just a how-to guide, and moving an on-premise PeopleSoft migration, on-premise PeopleSoft implementation to bare metal cloud services. So some of this talk today is going to be around how to, just some background on bare metal, and Pat's going to talk about and what the things to consider when we move PeopleSoft to bare metal cloud services. So you guys are probably going to ask, how do I get these slides? How do I get the paper? So if you text cloud 444999 to get the slides, you can also email hello@viscosityna.com and this bit.ly URL. We'll send you a copy of the bare metal PeopleSoft white paper. So we're really going to go over the why, what, why, and how of bare metal cloud services as it relates to PeopleSoft. So here's kind of the agenda. We're going to do the overview architecture, cover the main components, compute, networking, storage, and database, the key compartments, components. And then I'm going to turn it over to Pat, and he's going to talk specifically around the PeopleSoft implementation. All right, so bare metal cloud services, an overview. So bare metal cloud services is a set of complementary cloud services that enable consumers to build and run pretty much any, any type of various workloads and applications in a highly available hosted environment. So basically, the bare metal cloud services allow you to combine elasticity and really utility of public cloud in a more granular control. In other words, you can control as much as you want. It's your server, it's your hardware. You have the control over security and predictability of on-premise infrastructure, right? So just like any other environment that you do on-premise, bare metal has that same offering. You need to set up network, you need to set up compute as well as storage, as well as HA capability. So those things similarly apply when you're doing bare metal cloud services as well. So bare metal cloud services, an overview. What are the different benefits and characteristics of bare metal? Well, it's fully dedicated. It's the industry's first fully dedicated servers. There's no agents. There's no noisy neighbor issues like you do with other infrastructure as a service implementations. It's your hardware. You can do what you want with it. There's no shared services, and it's really built for enterprise apps. Very demanding applications such as DataGuard, RAC, SAP, Microsoft, and even what we're going to be talking about, which is PeopleSoft. So it was really architected towards performance first. So we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides about what the compute shapes look like. But the gear towards bare metal is really around performance IO intensive applications. And it's fast provisioning. Once you get log on to the cloud bare metal site, you can see there's several options in the marketplace for you to quickly deploy applications, your Linux environment, whatever it is. And for those of you guys who are very driven towards API, the same RESTful APIs that you would use in public cloud also apply in the bare metal cloud services as well. And most importantly, everybody's really concentrated and focused on pricing. So this is a pay-as-you-go pricing model. So you pay by the hour for everything from compute, IP, block storage, and you can start up and shut down as needed. Use it when you need it. Don't use it when you don't want to use it. So you only pay for what you use. So what apps are really suited for bare metal? Well, there's 3 buckets here. These are 3 buckets we've been focusing on as Viscosity. Is really around database, whether it's RAC or DataGuard. And we've been focusing the last several months on getting applications, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, eBusiness, as well as Siebel applications, doing a lift and shift, moving on-premise applications to bare metal cloud. Big data has also been a big concentration for us. Hadoop batch processing, offloading Spark streaming to big data, to bare metal, as well as containers and microservices. So let's go through the architecture, compartment by compartment, component by component. First, we'll focus on compute. Compute bare metal. This is the processor type. Again, this is going to continually change and evolve as new things get introduced. But as it stands right now, it's a 2.3 gigahertz Intel processor, Haswell processors. So there's 3 different shapes, compute shapes for bare metal. One is standard, and you get 36 OCPUs with 256 gig of memory. and block storage only. As you get further up in the stack with high and dense, you're getting the same amount of OCPUs, but a more denser memory footprint and a denser logical local disk footprint. In this case, the block storage is SSD, NVMe SSD. So you get 12.8 gig terabytes of NVMe for high and 28.8 terabytes of NVMe for the dense I/O. So think of it this way: bare metal cloud provides physical isolation and then complete ownership of the box. That's the big takeaway for bare metal, and it's fully dedicated bare metal servers on software-defined network. So bare metal cloud service includes servers with 36 CPUs, like I said, and NVMe solid-state storage. So that's great. Those big boxes are excellent for running database services. What if we're running, like I said, for PeopleSoft, there's going to be app servers, web servers, middle tier servers, right? So for those environments, those tiers where you don't need a complete bare metal, you can also run a virtual image instances in bare metal. For those are workloads that are not going to require a complete dedicated environment. So that's where you can run things like KVM and bring up an app server, a web server, to front end your PeopleSoft or whatever your application is. So the different compute shapes for VM, you have standard and you have dense. There's also a high density coming up in the near future. But as you can see, you can go as small as 1 OCPU and 7 gig of memory, all the way up to 16 OCPUs and 240 gig of memory. So as you can imagine, if you're running web servers or app servers, middle tier systems, they're not as CPU hungry or memory hungry. So those things are very appropriate for VM environments. Next thing up, and bare metal, you have various options for the operating system. You can run Oracle Linux 6.8, 7, CentOS, Ubuntu, and these are all free and they're all part of the marketplace. When you log on, create your account, and you want to deploy your bare metal environment, you have all these options to create your environment using these Linux distributions. And if you're in favor of using Windows 2008 and 2012 options are also there. Now, keep in mind the price tag for that is over and above the costing for the cloud. But if you visit cloud.oracle.com, it gives you all the details on pricing. So next up is storage. 3 different varieties or shapes and characteristics of storage. We have local NVMe. So local NVMe is storage that's very specific to that bare metal server. You can run databases on there. If you run databases on there or anything else, you probably want to use some kind of replication to have HA in case that server goes down for whatever reason. Again, this is NVMe storage, anything between 12.8 terabytes to 28.8 terabytes of fixed bare metal storage. And this is really fast SSD storage. The option number 2 is persistent block storage. And the persistent block storage is an interesting option. This is storage that you can attach as part of an external storage unit. And it can go anywhere from 50 gigabytes to 2 terabyte options. And this is iSCSI storage attachment. And the beauty of this is that if you ever have to shut down your systems, your block storage can be detached and you can reattach it to another bare metal environment. Or you can even take backups and take those backups and store them off-site. So think of block storage as an external storage unit that can be attached and detached as needed. And again, all the storage is fully encrypted with data at rest, TDE. The third storage is what we call our durable object storage. And this object storage is really meant for durable, low-cost storage, and you can use Swift APIs to access this data, and it has native HDFS support as well too. And the beauty of this object storage is that unlike other cloud providers, that object storage is local to that compute node. So everything is going to be layer 2 accessibility, low latency, high throughput access to even the object storage as well as block storage. From a network perspective, we have virtual VCN. right? For VCN, customers can bring their own private database IP addresses, and the virtual network, again, this is a software-defined network, so it's a non-blocking flat network, CLOS network. Customers have 10 gigabit bandwidth between hosts in an active availability domain, right? So this is very high-speed, low-latency networks, all software-defined. From the physical network connectivity, you have various different options to connect from on-premise to the cloud. You have site-to-site VPN, redundant network tunnels, and I'll talk about the layer 3 overlay networks in the next slide. But the physical networks is completely non-oversubscribed. Bare metal cloud provides full bandwidth from any host to any other host in the network. So what does connectivity look like? Again, like I said, you have 3 to 4 different options. You have VPC, you have IPsec VPN. If you have an MPLS provider, you can use MPLS to connect into your environment, and you can have direct connect, fast connect. So this is all layer 3 connectivity or layer 3 overlay connectivity. So I mentioned availability domains a couple times. So what is an availability domain? And other providers call it availability zones, AZs. In bare metal cloud, it's referred to as availability domains. Think of this as a region. Think of it as 3 regions that provide close but fault-isolated availability domains within a region, allowing synchronous replication and constant uptime for any disaster. So think of this as 3 distinct data centers all within a region, right? And you can have compute servers on one availability domain, you can have your database in another availability domain, and that's all within microseconds latency. And this is how you may want to distribute your workload between availability domains anyway. So think of this as 3 completely fault domain availability domains with ultra low latency, high demand, high bandwidth access between them. Again, to reemphasize the high availability design, the cloud platform is built with HA in mind. So it's unified accounts for identity and access management. Again, you can use your traditional tools like Golden Gate, DataGuard for replication. And the key differentiator for high availability is really the availability domains. So AD level failure and doesn't cause any region. If there's any availability domain that fails, you still have HA within that region. So everything from network, power, cooling, and software level isolation. So now let's get to the heart of it. So this is at the end of the day, we're really about database cloud services, right? So what are the different options in database cloud services on bare metal? Well, you have standard edition and you have enterprise edition. And all packages, whether standard or enterprise, both come with TD, transparent data encryption. So you have the option of running 11.2 or any one of the 12C flavors. The different packaging you get for EE is high performance and enterprise or extreme performance. For example, with enterprise, you get multi-tenant partitioning, real application testing, and advanced compression. Again, as I mentioned before, the database cloud service offering comes in a couple different flavors. You can do metered, OCPU by hour, or non-metered monthly. And bare metal cloud service is the only off cloud service provider that provides you a 2-node rack cluster. For those of you guys who want higher throughput and much larger footprint, there's also Exadata cloud service offering, which gives you, obviously there's EE only and 12C only, but you get quarter, half, and full rack configurations. And you get things extreme package that's built into it as well. So a question we commonly get is, what about the security in bare metal cloud? So security is first and foremost in this architecture. And I like to divide the cloud security in 2 different ways. There's cloud security that's of the cloud and in the cloud. So Oracle takes care of all the security of physical access, physical restrictions, as well as SSL and TD and all those things that come out of the box. Now, all those things that are within the cloud, inside the VM or inside the bare metal service is entirely up to you. You can put firewalls in, you can put whitelisted IP addresses in, you can enable IAM, You can do all those sources and profiles that you normally would do on-premise. That's all available to you within the bare metal cloud services. So think of this as a two-dimensional cloud security shared model. One is of the cloud, and the other one is in the cloud. And bare metal cloud services also comes with IAM service, so you can leverage a single model for authentication, authorization across all bare metal cloud services. So IAM service makes it really easy to manage access for different organizations, because most likely you're probably going to have different compartments, different configurations within bare metal. You're not going to have just one server. You're probably going to have multiple servers, and you need a unified way to access and authenticate groups of users in bare metal. As I wind down, I just want to mention that we did have limited time, but there are 3 other offerings I didn't mention. Well, I did kind of briefly touch on IAM, but there's load balancing services, which allows you to have multiple paths, especially if you're using web server, which may front end the bare application servers, which may front end your database servers. So load balancing services is also an offering with bare metal. And audit services allows you to audit access and access patterns as well. So once I've kind of described to you the different components. So how do these things all tie in? So just like you would do on-premise, if you had your sysadmin, your network admin, your storage admin, you would provision storage, you'd provision your network, you'd provision your databases, you would have access between these different configurations. You'd have different shapes, you'd have different configurations. You would have network firewalls between these, maybe even DMZs. All that is available to you in bare metal. You have the option of creating virtual cloud networks. So the way this approach would work in bare metal is the same way it would work on-premise, except everything is driven through cloud accesses. So you would pick your availability domain. You would configure your virtual cloud networks, which would include subnets, your different configuration IP addresses, your DNS, DHCP. Then you would configure your a pair of SSH keys. So this is how you monitor and support access from on-premise. The next thing you do is choose your shape, choose your image, what kind of image you want, Linux, Ubuntu, Windows, whatever it may be. Then choose your shape, how many OCPUs, how much shared memory, is it dense or is it high? And then optionally you would attach your storage volumes. So by going through this process, you effectively have created an entire compute architecture for your application. And before I turn it over to Pat, I wanted to touch on some of the things we've been working with other customers on. So one of the use case examples of bare metal, not necessarily with PeopleSoft, but pretty much anything else. We're moving numerous customers to the cloud right now, and a lot of them are in the process of either getting rid of their old hardware. They probably exceeded their duration of their hardware. Their 3 to 5 year term is probably up, or their hosting services is up for renewal. Or they want to do an application upgrade. So these are different use case scenarios where we're seeing customers come to Viscosity and say, hey, we want to move to bare metal or move to the cloud. So in other instances, we have customers coming to us and say, hey, we want to build a test dev environment in bare metal cloud. We want it to look as close as we can to our on-premise with low latency, high throughput. So for example, we're working with a customer right now that they want to test out the 11GR2 to 12.2 upgrade. So we're simulating that entire upgrade in bare metal cloud services. And Pat will talk about this a little as well too. But for example, in the PeopleSoft instance, you can try to test out your PeopleSoft upgrade as well as your replatforming on bare metal cloud. So these are different use case scenarios of when you would use bare metal cloud. There's numerous others, but these are things that we're seeing from our customers who are approaching us with how to get quickly and get agile cloud services quickly. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat. Pat, you're up.
Okay. Thank you, Nitin. I am going to pull up my slides here. So before I get started on the PeopleSoft on cloud and bare metal, I wanted to give you an idea as to why we chose PeopleSoft application on bare metal cloud service. So One of the primary reasons why we chose PeopleSoft application is because a lot of times we see PeopleSoft customers who wanted to upgrade from their current version to a newer version of PeopleSoft, whether it is tools upgrade or the applications upgrade, but they don't have the appetite to do that on their own hardware. So what they want to do is they want to take their application footprint as is with all the customizations, extensions, modifications, localizations, and interfaces, bundle them up together, and then wanted to lift and shift and move it to a bare metal cloud. And they want to leverage the platform on bare metal to actually do an upgrade. So a lot of times customers come back to me and say, look, we want to upgrade. We want to be on the latest and the greatest of the tool set. We want to be on the greatest, latest, pump feature of the PeopleSoft application. But currently we don't have the budget, or our hardware we are sunsetting our hardware because it's going to be end of life. We don't have the means or a platform to do, and we're also doing data center consolidation. We are moving away from the data center business. So those type of customers, there's a good use case to take these as is PeopleSoft application, migrate them or lift and shift them to bare metal cloud, and then use the bare metal cloud platform to do future upgrades and optimizations. So with that being said, I want to quickly get started. You would have seen the slide that was put together by Nitin on why bare metal cloud, and I'm here to talk about why PeopleSoft on bare metal cloud service. Now, it's a fully dedicated environment with no agents, no noisy neighbors, or shared resources for PeopleSoft. So if someone is trying to run a long-running job on a shared resource model, you're going to impact the PeopleSoft application. So we don't want to have that in this scenario. So it's a fully dedicated a server where PeopleSoft is running. It's not going to be impacted by a shared resource model. So we want to use PeopleSoft here and bare metal here. The second understanding is this bare metal is built actually for PeopleSoft Enterprise and for other applications. In this case, you can leverage Oracle Data Guard if you're going to be setting up a disaster recovery. You can set up a real application cluster for your PeopleSoft environment, and you can also set up WebLogic cluster for your application tier environment, if you will, on bare metal cloud service. Now, with the lift and shift aspect, I want to mention that it's taking an as-is environment of PeopleSoft with all the existing customizations, and you can bring them to the bare metal cloud. And there is a reasoning behind that, as I mentioned earlier. Sunsetting data center, you don't have the means to do an upgrade, or if you're going through some type of a platform, re-platforming it, or adding more server footprint to your PeopleSoft environment while you want to do an upgrade, it's a good means by which you can bring your existing application onto bare metal and start going through your upgrade process or your fit gap analysis, if you will, right? There are certain customers who want strict residency requirements and who want to protect the PeopleSoft environment with a good security perimeter, if you will. Bare metal becomes a good platform for that. There are some strict security policies within bare metal. You can configure. It is fully configurable, by the way, on bare metal cloud service. So you can leverage some of those nodes to make sure that those security policies are fully enabled. Faster provisioning, and I want to touch upon a little bit with native toolset. Now, what we are talking here is in our white paper, we took into consideration a PeopleTools version 8.55.xx with PeopleSoft 9.2 application, HCM, And what we did is that we were able to take an existing application, quickly provision bare metal compute servers and bare metal database cloud services, creating an empty shell, deploying the PeopleSoft DPKs directly on bare metal. I mean, the whole process took a day or two for us to put everything together, and then comes the configuration piece. But the faster provisioning with native toolset gave us the advantage for us to go in and start looking at PeopleSoft on bare metal. And then, of course, you have the pay-as-you-go subscription-based pricing model, right from compute to storage to the database cloud service and the load balancer as a service that we leverage. Everything is based on subscription model that customers can leverage. Now, I want to quickly point out for the audience as to how PeopleSoft can be leveraged across various layers here that Oracle provides you on Oracle Cloud. You can use the bare metal compute. You can use the VM compute with the hypervisor enabled. You can also try to start utilizing container services, though we haven't explored much from a container standpoint, but I do see some of PeopleSoft customers using Docker containers, and we do support Docker on bare metal cloud service, though we have not utilized Docker containers in our white paper. There's opportunity to lift and shift VMware or KVM-based workload, and then just migrate them onto bare metal cloud using Revelo. Revelo is another platform on top of bare metal. We call that a nested hypervisor product that Oracle leverages for customers to lift and shift VMware type workloads onto bare metal. Then we also offer dedicated compute and Spark-based architecture on our cloud, where PeopleSoft can be fully provisioned because PeopleTools fully supports Spark-based architecture. And last but not the least, we've got a new model called Cloud at Customer. So this is the Oracle Cloud Machine, Exa Cloud Machine, which has the same architecture, the tool set, and the UI that you would see in Oracle Public Cloud on premises within the customer's corporate firewall. So that's why we call it as Cloud at Customer. So you can use and leverage PeopleSoft workload deployed across these various platforms that are mentioned on the slide. Running PeopleSoft application in the Oracle Cloud, some of the four core tenets of why we run in cloud is because obviously there is rapid provisioning. You can quickly create multiple environments using native migration tools, if you will. And the reason I keep mentioning native migration tool set is that you can use native tools from Oracle, such as export and import, data palm tools to migrate the database from on-prem to cloud. For this particular exercise, please do note that the white paper does not contain any PeopleSoft Cloud Manager lift and shift concepts. We didn't use Cloud Manager with bare metal for this white paper. I'm sure that some of the audience folks would want to ask on Cloud Manager. You might have used that. We didn't use Cloud Manager here. We used native tool sets for PeopleSoft and Oracle to do a lift and shift. You do have centralized management. You can use the Enterprise Manager and plus also some of the native tools built on Linux to monitor, and also on Windows. For this particular exercise, for the white paper, we use two operating systems. All the mid-tier portion of PeopleSoft, for the most part, including the web tier, the application tier, and the Unix batch tier, was on Linux, Oracle Enterprise Linux, and we used Windows 2012 for the batch tier for Windows, and also for the file server, which is hosted on the bare metal cloud service. And then there's the ease of integration, right? The compute integration with database, and if you're going to be using an Exadata cloud for better performance on the database side, there's better integration built in. Plus, you can also use REST APIs to integrate PeopleSoft with upstream, downstream systems and other third-party applications if you have to. We want to paint a picture and show you what this white paper contains from an architecture standpoint, and all the ingredients that comes with the PeopleSoft components. We provision all the PeopleSoft resources on bare metal within a single region on the same virtual cloud network. As you can see, you've got a load balancer as a service from bare metal. We used compute servers on bare metal for the application tier, the batch tier, and for the web tier. We used database cloud service (DBCS) for the database component for PeopleSoft, and there was also the storage tier. And for the batch and file server, as I mentioned, we use Windows 2012 R2 to install the PeopleSoft file servers, and also deployed PeopleSoft Change Assistant. If a customer wants to use and leverage bare metal cloud service to do an upgrade, then obviously they'll have to have a 2012 or Windows-based operating system and install their file deployment servers to start using CAs to start deploying PUM updates. A couple of things I want to mention here is that the BMCS load balancer, we did not use HTTPS, we used straight HTTP transactions because we didn't want to go through the process of installing SSL certificates, because this was an exercise to just show what does it require bare minimum to lift and shift a PeopleSoft environment onto bare metal cloud service. And then we'll see if there are any questions on the chat. We'll discuss those later during this, after this presentation. Quickly on the licensing model, I'm sure that some of our customers would be asking about PeopleSoft app licensing and database licensing. So when you purchase on-premises PeopleSoft, you get the PeopleSoft licensing, and we'd also bundle in the database licensing. We factor in whether it is based on named user plus or it is based on course, and we give you both database and PeopleSoft application licensing. Now, on bare metal cloud service, for existing customers who want to migrate from on-prem to cloud, DMCS, your licenses are transferable, which means your application licenses for PeopleSoft can be transferred on-prem to cloud, and your database licenses can also be transferable. Now, please do note that if you've got COBOL compiler, or if you're running COBOL, especially for HCM and financials, and if the COBOL compiler is on a different operating system, and if you want to bring in COBOL onto Linux or Windows, you might have to have a COBOL license. But if it is the same operating system between source and target, which is on-prem and cloud, if it is Linux and Linux, then you can easily transfer the COBOL licenses as well. For net new customers for PeopleSoft who want to deploy PeopleSoft in the cloud, you'd have to go through the same process of an on-prem, where you'll have to purchase licenses for both PeopleSoft and the database licenses. So we just want to give you an idea what it entails to bring or transfer licenses for existing customers and then net new customers. This is one of the slides where, PeopleSoft on-prem and PeopleSoft bare metal cloud deployment choice, what you get is the same PeopleSoft tools and technology footprint, the same application that you're running on premises, the same, the investment that you've made with PeopleSoft for years together is the same technology that you're going to be seeing on bare metal, right? So you get the same UI, the same The fluid user interface, if you're going to be on tools, 854 and above, the same user experience that you're, running PeopleSoft, on-prem, you're going to see that in cloud. You can start off by, putting your dev test environments in the cloud. We can do your upgrade scenarios. If you spin up and you want to have a new DevOps cycle in a cloud, it's a good way to start off. Spinning up bare metal compute and getting started. It's easy to scale on bare metal, so it gives you a good opportunity for you if you're going to be doing some kind of volume testing or stress testing, and you want to pump in some synthetic load. You can do that, and it's a great opportunity and a good use case for you to deploy PeopleSoft on bare metal cloud service. Now, quickly, I want to show you a list of the bill of materials that we had to have to deploy PeopleSoft on bare metal. Obviously, we used compute, and we had some network, since it's going to be some outbound transfer between on-prem to cloud. There will be some network layer that we want to think about. There is some storage. There's object storage and block storage. We use load balancer as a service, so you want to bring in some load balancer if you have to, or you can use your own native load balancer from on-prem that you want to use. But we do offer load balancer as a service. That's what we use for our white paper. And then we use database cloud service. So we use Oracle Enterprise Edition, and you can use that for DBCS. It's not mandatory to use DBCS for bare metal cloud service. You can combine both database and the mid-tier app tier and bundle them up into a compute cloud service. But we want to separate and show a clear distinction between, PeopleSoft running on DBCS, how quickly you can provision an empty database shell on DBCS, and then start provisioning all the mid-tier app tier on compute cloud service. That brings us to the end of the session, and we'll open it up for questions for both Nitin and myself. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for sharing your insights and expertise, Pat and Nitin. We had a few questions come through. The first one, would you please repeat how to get a copy of the white paper as you stated in the intro? And Nitin, I believe this is directed to you.
Yeah. If you look in the chat, there is a bit.ly URL that we provide. If you click on that, it'll take you to the location to download it. Or you can email us at hello@viscosityna.com, and we'll get you that paper as well. So 2 different options.
Perfect. Thank you, Nitin. And for those of you that are still on the line, I did just chat that to you all, so you should be able to access the link and then have the email address as well. The next question we had come through, how is the BMCS beneficial for PeopleSoft as compared to OPC, except for the fully dedicated option?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. This is Pat Bangalore. Let me answer that. So one of the things that I want to mention to you is, obviously, if you've used the OPC Gen 1, you have the advantage of using the marketplace images that the PeopleSoft product development has already published. There is seamless integration between those images that you can uptake from the marketplace onto your OPC. In the bare metal cloud service, the integration is coming. The product development teams are working on it. Very soon you'll see that integration. It's part of the roadmap. That's going to be coming in. Number one. Number two is what I want to mention to you is on Gen 1 OPC, you've got the advantage of using the PeopleSoft provided toolkit, which is the Cloud Manager lift and shift. A lot of customers would have started to use that Cloud Manager toolkit. Now, speaking with product development teams within Oracle, there is also a roadmap to get the Cloud Manager fully available for bare metal cloud service. So there are advantages apart from a an isolation and a dedicated environment. There might be a couple of features that are there on the roadmap, and it is common. We can share with you the exact dates and the timelines of when it's going to be released. But since keeping those in mind, you're going to see bare metal, PeopleSoft and bare metal on par with OPC Gen 1 with marketplace integration very soon, the use of PeopleSoft Cloud Manager for lift and shift, and so on and so forth.
Wonderful. Thanks, Pat. Before we move on to the next question, anything to add, Nitin?
That was a good answer, and I think it responded in the chat as well too.
Perfect. Thank you.
One thing I want to mention again is from a performance standpoint, the NVMe storage plays a greater role for PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft applications are very chatty, especially if you're going to be running COBOL jobs, batch processing. If you're going to be using a lot of IO related transactions or workloads in PeopleSoft, I think a faster NVMe storage greatly and most efficiently optimizes the performance of a PeopleSoft transaction. Though we have not tested that particular piece on our white paper, we have seen that the transactions are pretty, a lot faster.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. The next question we had come through: how will it work if the database is SQL Server and not Oracle?
Well, so PeopleSoft, again, let me take this, Pat Bangalore here. PeopleSoft, fully supports, multiple RDBMS platforms. To that end, you should, as long as the application and the version of the tool supports the version of a Microsoft SQL Server, you can bring in a 2012 or image of Windows and install SQL Server on compute on bare metal cloud service, and then have PeopleSoft running on it. Nothing should stop that. But what we say is, even though you want to bring in SQL Server, all the optimization, the provisioning, and the instrumentation and the automation that we have done with database cloud service with Oracle is much larger than other RDBMS platforms.
Great, thank you. The next question, as a follow-up to that, is there any prerequisite for using native tools for lift and shift?
Actually, no. That's the beauty of bare metal cloud services. You can use the tools that you've been using so far. In this case for tools 855, we didn't use Cloud Manager, which it was not. We didn't use that. We used to update the database portion of PeopleSoft. We used native Oracle database utilities. And the same goes with the PeopleSoft. So there's nothing on the mid-tier application tier layer. So all you have to do is just install the DPKs for People Tools and the application DPKs directly on the compute and install it on the compute bare metal cloud service, and then provision them. And then, if you've got configuration files that you need to copy them over, you can just SCP those configuration files onto bare metal and then position them. So it was very easy for us to use that because we didn't have to learn or update any of the new technologies out there.
Yeah, I'll just add that in our experiences, some of the customers who've already migrated to bare metal, we've used native tools, and I guess the term native is open for discussion, but we used Golden Gate in one case to move the database from location, from on-premise to cloud. We also use things like SharePlex. So whatever your vehicle of choice is for migration, you can use that. We've used Data Pump in certain cases, and even PDB relocate. So if you guys are familiar with 12.2 features, you can do things like PDB relocate. So it's really entirely up to you. Whatever tools of choice you have from on-premise, you can use those as you migrate to bare metal as well.
Great, thank you. A follow-up question we had, how about the DR for files which is outside of database, such as COBOL source code, SQR, etc.?
Yeah, so in this white paper, we didn't compile COBOL or install COBOL, so or relink COBOL to database. So, but that should not stop the audience from installing COBOL. So you, just like I mentioned, fire up a Windows image, install PeopleSoft file server, including tools. You're more than welcome to install it on Linux. Create a Linux image on bare metal cloud. On that compute, you can go ahead and install COBOL server, whether it is microservice or Micro Focus COBOL or NetExpress, which runs on Windows. So you could do both and have a dedicated file server with People Tools installed. And that's possible. And in our case for SQRs, we had both a Windows-based batch server where we had the SQRs installed, and then you can also have a Unix-based batch server install the process scheduler based components for tools and install the SQRs there as well. So yeah, there is a provision for you to do that. You can install the source code for COBOL and SQRs dedicated on both Windows and Linux images.
Great, thank you. We have time for a few more questions. One of the questions we received, how is bare metal cloud services different than Oracle IaaS?
So bare metal cloud service is so what we're doing with bare metal cloud service is that it's a new offering from Oracle where customers can go in and choose the operating system and choose what they want to run in a very secure location or a VM or in a compute zone without having any hindrances from other systems, other shared systems. So it's totally dedicated for the customer. But what we have in IaaS Gen 1 is that we also offer dedicated, but for the most part, these are shared VMs, shared VM concept. Number two is for IaaS Gen 1, we run Zen-based hypervisor on VMCS. If you choose to go with the hypervisor route, we offer KVM hypervisors, which I just wanted to mention there. And if you go to cloud.oracle.com, bare metal cloud service, there's the whole list of feature functionalities directed towards bare metal cloud service that you can just follow. Things like load balancers as a service, which we introduced, and some of the additional feature functionalities we are enabling, we are offering it on bare metal cloud service. And that's why I wanted to mention to you that some of the PeopleSoft customers, if you want to leverage some of the marketplace images and some of the new tool sets like Cloud Manager, those are all on the roadmap items that are coming very soon that you're going to see for bare metal cloud service. And Nitin, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add, and good response, Pat, is that with bare metal, one of the attractive things, at least with our customers, is that it's very predictable performance, right? There's no multi-tenancy, there's no noisy neighbor, and that's been the big differentiator, for, at least for customers who want really I/O-intensive applications that need to be moved over. So the key differentiator here is really predictable performance for I/O-intensive workloads.
Thanks, Nitin.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more question. What are the options to migrate to BMCS?
So if you look at the white paper, the options, if you look at it in a generic sense, how do we migrate PeopleSoft to BMCS? There are a couple of things. One is there's the database piece and there's the mid-tier, app-tier piece. The database piece is, you can use the native tool sets that Nitin and I mentioned, using Oracle tools, data pump, export, import type utilities. And for the mid-tier, app-tier, it's just a fresh installation of the tool set and the application directly onto BMCS compute. And then if there are any specific customer-specific configuration files, you can, SCP them or SFTP them onto bare metal, and then, provision them. So that's one way of looking at migrating your PeopleSoft instance. But Nitin, you've got other technologies that you have leveraged within your practice too. So if you want to mention those as well, go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about respect to migration, right?
At least from a database standpoint, I know you mentioned Golden Gate and ShareFlex, right? So those are other areas.
Yeah, those are all. This goes back to, and it's no different than on-premise versus in cloud. It's really what comes down to is your SLA, downtime SLA, your mean time to recovery, all those things. So if you have restrictive downtime requirements and things like logical replication, data guard, ShareFlex, Golden Gate, are all great tools. But if you do have opportunity to take downtime, then RMAN backups, data pump, export, import. Again, the size of the database makes a big difference too. So size, complexity, and propensity for downtime is our three main factors in using the right tool. But the good news is that you have a whole plethora of tools that you can use. The same tools you use for on-premise can also be used for this migration to cloud.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Pat, Nitin, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I would say this, it's a net new infrastructure out there. A lot of customers are exploring bare metal cloud service. It's a great opportunity for customers to start looking at some of the use cases that we presented for PeopleSoft. There are some roadmap items that are coming soon, but it's a good way to get your test dev environments. Start rethinking your DevOps cycle and looking at upgrading your environments, and then using bare metal cloud service as a platform to do your upgrades in the near future. Nitin?
Yeah, that's along the same lines. One of the areas we're seeing interest in is test dev environments on bare metal, or testing your upgrades, going from 11 to 12.1 or even 12.2, or testing feature functionality. One of the areas of interest right now, I know we focused on PeopleSoft, but it's really moving an on-premise JD Edwards or e-business to bare metal because of expiring hardware, whatever it is. But those are the use case scenarios, is really moving things off from hardware refreshes, or even using them for test dev. And those are really the key points, key areas that we've been focusing on. Again, the big takeaway here is that bare metal is really it's physical hardware that you have complete control over to install what you want to install and to get up and running quickly. It's a really efficient price model.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you both for sharing your insights and expertise on this matter. We greatly appreciate it. And that concludes today's webcast. I'd like to give a big thank you to Pat and Nitin, our speakers from today, as well as the IOUG Cloud Computing SIG. Before we conclude, please make note of our upcoming webinars and past webinars by visiting www.ioug.org. A recording from today's webinar will soon be available along with the slide decks on the IOUG website in our Resource Center. There is a survey after this webinar for you to complete. We thank you in advance for your feedback. Again, we appreciate you attending today's webinar, and have a great day.